All right, we're back with the second installment of the Your Coach podcast. Um, I'm John LaFranco. I am with Joe Wedlock, and we're going to talk about running and coaching today. This is the second one. I I wanted to start by kind of clarifying a little bit like what this podcast is about. Um, it, Generally running, coaching, not really sure yet, exactly if we want to, narrow it down or whatever. But I think, talking to people that I work with as a coach and that I trust and that I think are people that know what they're doing in the running space. So, and hoping that they'll have things to share for the audience that, that maybe I don't, I don't have to share. And so it's kind of like a value added for all the people in the audience out there. And yeah, so with that, Joe Wedlock. Joe, how about you introduce yourself? Tell us, kind of where you come from and where you're at.
Thanks for having me, John. It's very much an honor to be in that category of people that you trust in the running scene. Yeah, I'm Joe. I'm originally from Australia, moved to Montreal about 7 years ago. In terms of my sporting background, I ran cross country at high school. That was 20 odd years ago and was very chill. I didn't take my running very seriously that long ago, and then kind of took a break from physical activity during my university years and didn't really come back to running until when I started working after university. But I ended up taking a sidestep pretty quickly into triathlon. So yeah, I really loved the variety in the training week that was available to me if I was swimming, biking, and running and getting in the gym. So my coaching journey actually started out in triathlon back in Australia in a volunteer capacity. And then when I moved to Montreal, I started studying at Concordia University, and that's when I met John. And I joined the Concordia Stingers group and was part of that team for the 2019-2020 season. And then when the head coach position was posted for Dawson College cross country running team, Dustin Feffley and I co-head coach that group now, and it's been about 3 years in the running. I also started assistant coaching with John a couple of years ago as well. So I think that's a pretty good summary of
Yeah.
my trajectory as a runner, as an athlete, as a coach.
Yeah. So I think that's so the first question I wanted to ask you is, you were a university athlete, and then fairly shortly after that, we brought you on as the assistant coach. What was that like, the transition from athlete to coach? Like, you were coaching before that, obviously, but just kind of in the same environment, going from athlete to coach. How was that for you?
It was a little tricky, I must say. Like, I know that at the same time I was coaching the Dawson College group, and so there's a small age difference there. The CJEP students are slightly younger, but yeah, also not having a lot of space in between being an athlete on the team and then coming back as a coach. Obviously, there were people who were my peers who I was now like in a coaching position with them. So I mean, like it wasn't like a huge. They didn't cause any issues, but in sense of my feeling like I had any kind of authority or power in a coaching position. I mean, um I struggled to grasp that in any case. And then being alongside my peers, it took a while for me to feel like I had any kind of value to really add in that position.
Um, that's a great answer. It's always challenging to kind of take on a new role with like the same people, and so you have these existing relationships, but now they have to kind of relate to you in a different way. And you allude to like the authority and the power, and I think we both know that's not those words are not necessarily like the most descriptive of our coaching always. But what is your coaching philosophy? Like, how do you approach coaching? And you know, you coach obviously the school teams, but you also coach some adult recreational athletes in I think in triathlon and running as well. So how do you what's your philosophy of coaching?
Yeah, that's a great follow-up question because it's true. Like I was never gonna come at that assistant coaching gig for the university looking for any kind of authority or power over people because my coaching philosophy is very much like a collaborative approach. I think an athletic journey is a journey and a process of learning, growth, and discovery. And I think the most powerful way that that can unfold is a collaborative approach, because a lot of what I'm aiming to have, one of my goals is to develop an athlete who is more autonomous and has some mastery over their own training and how that goes. So I think if the approach can be collaborative, then a person can come away from that experience with the tools to continue on, whether that be, on their own or just continue to progress that athletic journey with you as well.
Yeah, yeah, completely agree. So what happens then when um you know you talk about collaborative approach, like what happens when you see something that the athlete needs to be doing or needs to be done, and in your experience as a coach, like, okay, like this is what needs to happen, but they're for one reason or another not kind of willing or maybe motivated, or they're just not kind of there's a disagreement. So how do you resolve that, where you have the coach who, whether you embrace it or not, you're in a position of authority because you do have this experience. So how do you approach that when you have to, or when you have this kind of conflict potentially?
Yeah, obviously a collaborative approach is it's got to be relative to where the athlete is at in their journey. Someone who's just beginning, someone at the CJEP stage who is just coming to running and starting their journey is gonna need a lot more information and guidance than someone, some of my older athletes who have been around for a long time and sometimes in my opinion are more experienced than me, having done multiple Ironman kind of events. Yeah, so I think trying to focus on the kind of the details of what are happening, if there's a thing, a philosophy of training that people believe is going to be a good approach. I mean, there's like so many different ways to approach training, right? Many people have researched things from different perspective, different fads, different approaches come and go in their popularity. So I think trying to focus on what are then the outcomes. If someone is trying to train a particular way and then the outcomes, or there's no improvement that's happening, to try to reflect on that and learn from it. Sometimes we make mistakes. I mean, like, oh, you never want to be in the territory where people are like injuring themselves, but if you try out one training methodology for 6 weeks and it's not working, it's not getting the benefits that you would hope, then yeah, it's time to adjust. And I think it's always a bit of an experiment like this.
Yeah, definitely. So in the case of a kind of disagreement or not sort of sure where to go, like I think it's always I think there's always a sense of urgency, from athletes, like, oh, I have to do like this now, and this race is coming, and like my workout is this. But as a coach, we have to take a more kind of like step back, like bigger picture approach. And sometimes it's like, okay, like, yeah, go and do this workout that you want to do, even though it might not be the most optimal thing, but then they come away happy, and then you can kind of suggest they do something else a bit later, or or sometimes they have to fail first before they, like fail, like mistake, like just, whatever, things don't go as well as they can. So more specifically then, like what is your I don't know, primary training methodology, or like how, let me phrase it this way, how do people get better at running in your view?
I think by running.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a
All right,
really
done.
simple answer. I mean,
Yep.
this is another conversation you and I've had at different points in times too, in the way that we can like overcomplicate things sometimes. And like I think what's his name? Not Matt Dixon, or from Purple Patch, maybe. He has like a phrase of like nail the basics. And yeah, trying to build that foundation of like athletes just running, like running easy in order to get like a bit of a base endurance, aerobic endurance involved. Yeah. I mean, a lot of you've obviously been like a huge influence in a lot of the training approaches that I've seen adopted and everything. So yeah, I think back to my Concordia days when you would say run mostly easy almost every day and make sure you're recovering. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like it's there's a lot of simple things that need to happen before we get into the kind of the fun stuff or the complicated stuff, and it's hard to sometimes get the athletes to focus on that. And it's funny, I find like even myself, like kind of I, I'm rehabbing from this knee thing and like trying to run, and then I get sick, and and it's sort of like I'm still sort of building up the volume, and it's like, when can I do like a workout? I'd like to do a workout. But it's not, but it's kind of like, I probably shouldn't do that yet because it just probably cause a problem or whatever. And um so and do you think it, like how does it apply, say, to triathlon? Is it sort of a similar thing, or do the different sports or events or in triathlon each have their kind of own approach? Like how do you approach coaching triathlon?
Similar philosophies for sure, in that sense of like if you want to be doing most of your stuff at a easy or lower training zones, to give your body the best chance at absorbing that and recovering. Yeah, it's actually kind of funny at the moment. I don't know if it's me and my influence, but like the two triathletes I was coaching, one of them is during the fall at least decided to do more running, and so he jumped into his first ultra trail run. And yeah, I said to him like, I hope it's not my influence and like my guidance that has that you moved away from triathlon. So but yeah, when it comes to training, like planning a weekly training schedule for triathlon and trying to mix three sports in there, sometimes it comes to the point, people are working jobs and have other time commitments, that you need to take a bigger approach to things in terms of thinking about a 10-day or a 14-day kind of cycle and mixing things up like that. Yeah, and there's so many things that go into planning training too, in terms of people's tolerance for monotony. Some people don't mind or like actually really love repeating workouts for a few weeks in a row, and other people have lower tolerances to this kind of training plans. um I was going to make another point as well, and yeah, just trying to fit into people's work schedules.
Well, I
And
want to ask you about the sort of longer training, the longer, we'll call it like a microcycle, like 10 or 14 days. So is that because, like, are you trying to get, sort of, say if we think about a running week and we think, okay, we want to have like a long run and maybe like some intervals and maybe a tempo run or two intervals or something. So you're trying to figure out ways of like, is the breakdown the same? Like you want to have a long ride as well? Do you do a long swim? Like, there's, they're different sort of types of swim workouts that you want to get in, and so to try to put it in 7 days would not be realistic because then you just have like no off days. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, in terms of trying to plan intensity in each of those three disciplines, um, within any kind of cycle. Like obviously also, um, you could probably get away with more intensity in a swim session, but yeah, the toll or like the force that's generated during running, yeah, trying to balance everything, trying to balance out that load and intensity over a longer span of time. Because yeah, if you do the math, if you're trying to fit in two intense swim workouts, two bike workouts that have any kind of intensity in them, and running as well in a week, then it's like there goes your equation. I mean, yeah, unless you're working with someone who is really like a full-time athlete, I think that's how professionals get away with it, is in the scheme of their week trying to fit to any kind of like 80-20 rule, for example, is a little more feasible than someone who's dedicating perhaps 10 hours, 15 hours of training to a week.
10 hours is still a lot of training. I mean, I guess not for a triathlon, but it's a lot of time spent training.
It is a lot of time. People could have a part-time job with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are the elements? I'm just curious, like let's go down sort of a triathlon rabbit hole here, and like so what are the key workouts you want to have in a triathlon training cycle?
The other thing I like to consider too, I mean, at different points in the year, and
Yeah.
this is not like a micro cycle thing, is people might want to prioritize or like take a chunk of time to prioritize a specific leg. Like I know for myself as a weak swimmer that if I wanted to improve my triathlon times, the best way for me to do that is to actually carve out more time in my week to make sure I'm getting in the pool and making that a priority over my run sessions. So yeah, if I was looking to improve my times, I would be getting in the pool 4 times a week, and um, I the best way would for me would be to work in a group, because I definitely feel that kind of like camaraderie or like group pressure to be performing better than on my own. And because of, if you're going to prioritize 4 swim sessions a week and actually have some intensity in there, then it would mean cutting back on, for example, my running. Like my run leg is a lot stronger than the other two. Then yeah, you might have to, it might feel like a sacrifice, but it's kind of where you're going to get the biggest improvements.
Well, I would imagine that you're still trading. So then how long would it take? Like, how would you time that with respect to a race? So say you're trying to improve your swim, so you're gonna add, like increase the swims, and then like how long before your sort of goal race are you bringing back in you know runs and bikes to sort of a certain extent?
Mm. I mean, given the racing season for triathlon is in the summer too, I think like a dedicated winter block, and I guess when I say winter, it would be like February. We're like coming out of the new year. Um, yeah, kind of an 8 week block dedicated to a lot of swimming at some point in time.
Mm.
That might be too early, like maybe end of February. Yeah, to really, because like we'd have to think about the the drop off afterwards when you build that fitness or that skill. How long can we maintain that into the competitive season? So it would be kind of a working backwards as well.
Interesting. Um, do you encourage the runners you coach to cross train? It's just given you have sort of an expertise in swimming and biking, you just sort of try to use those, I don't know, those elements to help people with running.
Yes. Yes. And also from a mental fatigue point of view too. I don't know.
I
I
mean, it wouldn't
think
work for me because the swimming would be just too much mental fatigue entirely. It's not a swimming is not
this
less
is the
mental
thing.
fatigue.
It's right. It's a there's so many factors to consider,
Mhm.
I think. But yeah, if you have someone who like if if like scheduling scheduling run sessions that they're maybe not gonna do, or I mean when I think about the reasons why we do these things at all. There's so many ways you can spend your time in this life. Like, why are we running? Why are we swimming? Why are we biking? Like, hopefully, there's an element of joy or like enjoyment there, or whether maybe it's even just a group of people that you enjoy spending time around or something. Um, I think there's a lot of aerobic endurance that you can still achieve in the pool or on the bike. And so if it's like a break for people in a mental way, and they're more likely to be compliant if you're scheduling cross training sessions in at the appropriate time of year, I think it can be really like a great strategy to get people out the door and moving.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and what about for like if for kind of injury replacement or sort of like rehab? Is it if you use that in that way as well?
Yeah, for sure. Myself, I was struggling with like a weird my right quad muscle would get like super tight. And it took me a number of physio appointments and MRIs and like an appointment with a surgeon to figure out that I guess like I have a small patch of arthritis on the what's it called, posterior head of my femur that like gets aggravated sometimes, and the process of like figuring out what was going on was tedious. Injuries can take time like this, and so in rather than being sad sitting on the couch at that point in time, I had some really great friends who would either drag me to the pool or to the like was like a man-made beach in Brisbane, and we would go water running while the rest of the group actually like got their run or their bike done. So it was a way to keep moving, and I'm not going to pretend that I got super fit doing that, but
Yeah.
it was something.
Uh, Water running is great. I when I was in university, we used it as sort of a regular part of our training plan. Tuesday, Thursday, we would go to the pool as a team and do some pool running and like sort of like some strike stuff, like on the side of the pool and things like that. Um, and yeah, I thought it was great, and it was also just like one of those things that like I kind of learned how to do it, and so now I just do it, and like I don't need a belt or anything like that. Like I just jump in the pool and go.
Yeah.
And rehab for my knee. I was doing a lot of pool running at a certain point because I wasn't ready to go, and like I was doing some run walk and stuff like that, but not really go. And so I could go in the pool and kind of do intervals and things like that, and it was like fine. But yeah, so it's always good to have these different kind of tools in the toolkit, and I think um working with you and working with Kyla, someone obviously we need to get on here as well. Kyla Rollinson, Olympic triathlon coach. I think it kind of opened my eyes a bit to like the possibilities of these of the using the other sports to sort of get people going. I think it does come back to like if you want to run, you got to run, but if you can't for one reason or another, then there's good alternatives, and and they're they'll keep you fit. Like yeah, you might not get in like your best shape, but you won't lose fitness certainly, and probably get a little bit better. Cross country skiing too is something that's a little bit more logistically complicated,
Mhm.
but it's also a good one. Um, so you also mentioned the long trail running stuff. How did you get involved with that? Like what made you think like I want to go run for like several hours? Because I remember when I was in university, I worked at a running store, and there was this guy who was an ultra guy, and he would come in and and talk whatever, and he was run everywhere. He was always running, and I kind of said, I was like, oh yeah, it might be interesting to try something like that. And he kind of gave me this very serious look, and he was like, well, if you're crazy enough to consider it, you just might do it. And I was like, okay. um, but I mean, the longest run I've done is a marathon. But how did you get into this like ultra trail stuff?
Uh, this was a pandemic project, I
Mhm.
guess. Yeah, in the sense of like we weren't able to be meeting up in groups and do all the usual running things that we were doing. So I had done some trail runs before the pandemic,
Mhm.
a couple of the mech series ones that
Mhm.
were around. But yeah, during the pandemic, we really kind of, my wife and I leaned into that and hit the trails a bit more with the thought that, well, if we're out in the woods, we're very far away from people
Yeah.
and any potential infections and stuff. And so, yeah, I really love it. The adventure element of this was very appealing. Yeah. So we have done like a number of camping trips
Hmm.
in order to go and train and run in different areas of Quebec and different trails and stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah. And also that thrill that you feel, that thrill when you sign up for something and you just actually don't know if you can do it. I remember this feeling being very real when I signed up for my first Olympic distance triathlon and then my first half Ironman distance. And as much as you prepare and can trust in your training, there's still that question of like, I have never physically done this. Because when you get to a certain point, like a certain distance, um, it doesn't make any sense. It's not feasible. It's not recommended to go out and do that distance in a one particular training session, like within one day,
Right.
right? So yeah, being on the start line of a 65K trail race and just that feeling of like, you know what, today's a PB. As long as I finish,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a PB. Yeah.
So what is the training strategy then? Because yeah, you can't obviously your long run isn't going to be 65K for a 65K race. Um, so how do you train for ultra marathons? Is there any intervals involved? Is it all just easy running? How do you structure this training? Because you mentioned you do coach someone also who's doing this.
Yeah, and this is one of the elements that I love about it is like the emphasis on just long, easy runs, running easy. I think after my time on the Concordia team with many grueling workouts and such an emphasis on running as fast as you could, also moving to the trails and kind of rationalizing, well, I have to run 65 kilometers. So there's no way I'm running 65 kilometers at my like 5K pace. Yeah, and the variety in trail running that is like, okay, now I'm walking up a hill because like you're climbing a mountain and nobody runs up certain hills. Um, it's a little more forgiving, or I mean, I don't know. You can tell that I haven't got to a stage with ultra running where I'm performance orientated at all. It's very much about surviving and finishing still. So just yeah, lots of running, and I think a lot of hitting the trails and trying to do some long runs, and yeah, kind of shifting the mindset from being focused on hitting a certain number of kilometers in a certain run or in a certain week and trying to think more about time on feet. Um, yeah, which is which also suited the approach of like training with my wife too, because that way we could just be all like, okay, well, we're gonna go and do this loop, and if it takes us 5 hours, that's fine. It's important time on feet, and I mean, another huge emphasis for me in covering these long distances is being able to eat. Like I kind of just think about it as a bit of an eating competition.
Yeah.
because if you don't eat frequently and enough, then you're gonna run out of energy. So it's kind of I find it a lot of fun to be out in the woods and eating as much as I can.
How do you carry your food? How does that work? Like, because it's like if you're going for a really long run, like you got to bring a lot of food. So how do you manage to carry it?
Yeah, as trail runners,
And
we
what do
have
you eat?
running packs.
Hmm.
Like you also need to carry your hydration, especially if you're going out on a training run by yourself and there's no aid stations, no one's filling up your water thingers, bottles for you. Yeah. Uh, so you pack everything in your pack and you carry it on your back. And sometimes that can mean your pack starts out at, a lot. I'm also someone who likes to be very prepared, so I will usually start out a race with like too much water. Um, uh, yeah, and packing all kinds of things. I think one of my favorite snacks in the woods is like a stroopwafel. You know, the like cookie biscuit thing like this and it has caramel in the middle. Yeah, some of those. And they have so many different foods at aid stations on trail races that like little salted potatoes, half a grilled cheese sandwich for lunch. Because I mean, if you're out there running 12 hours, you gotta have some solid food at some point.
Right. Well, that was going to be
Um,
my next question. Like, there's, gummies and gels and things like that, but like surely you can't survive on gelatin and fructose alone.
Maybe in theory,
Mm.
but yeah, for me personally, at some point during the day, I find that like I have a feeling of my stomach is empty because like perhaps you're consuming these gels and you're getting like the energy, the carbohydrate, the glucose that you need to technically fuel.
Mm.
But it's not very nice when it's like 1 p.m. and your stomach is grumbling because lunchtime has passed and your body knows it. Mm.
Cool. Um, okay, I wanted to ask, kind of go back a little bit and ask about, coaching. You coach athletes in college, or for those outside of Quebec, it's sort of like a kind of like a late high school, really, and in university, but also coaching, kind of adult recreational athletes. What are some of the things as a coach that, that kind of cross over of those between those groups? Similar things that you encounter that you need to worry about as a coach.
I mean, everybody has a body, and this is like our vehicle to get from A to B that we're training. So in that sense, people are going to have nutrition, recovery needs, strength work is another consistent piece there, whether that's getting in the gym and lifting heavy weights or trying to motivate people to do the tiny physio exercises that we all have because we all have weak glutes. Um, uh, yeah, those are some things. And then also, uh, I I think hopefully everybody has kind of a curiosity as to where their athletic journey can take them. And yeah, I think that's one of my jobs as a coach is providing people with options. In terms of there's a lot of different ways we can run. So one of my jobs as a CJEP coach is to have people run the cross country season, but also, many of them are starting their running journey and having them know that like, okay, there's like indoor track and we were at indoor track for provincial champs for under 20s the other week, but on that same weekend, Canadian Masters championships was happening. So I think it was really cool to have people see like you have your whole life.
Yeah. Just keep
You have
going.
your whole life and you can do a number of different things. And so I see that as one of my jobs as a coach is to say like, okay, cool, guys, like there's an indoor track thing. This happens. I mean, these competitions are pretty new to me too. So let's go discover it and figure it out. And then we have community road races. You can do 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon, like go nuts with the road races. And then we have trail running. And I mean, these are just running ambitions that people can build, and you know, it just goes on from there. If you want to get into triathlons, a whole other different distances, and then you have another discipline to explore. I'm sure swimming as a discipline has all of its things, and I know that cycling also has a long list of different events as well.
Yeah, so really that's like, kind of the coach is opening the door to a lifetime of hopefully, healthy physical activity. And I think that's good. That's a very, that's like the big picture, right? Sort of why, I mean, people will have, usually sort of short-term athletic goals of like, PB or wanting to run this race or whatever. But I think if you don't have that longer term goal, then it can be disappointing. Like you can kind of get to your goal race and do the thing, and then after you're like, oh, like I'm not as like happy as I thought I was going to be. Like I was happy in the moment, but now I'm just sort of back where I started. I'm still the same person. I just now run 5K under 20 minutes instead of over or something. And so you if you have that perspective of like, okay, but like this is like something that I enjoy the process. I enjoy doing this thing, and I'm going to keep doing this thing, and I'm going to keep, whether it's, races or not, just keep going, to to kind of have that thing in your life. That's it's important. I think it's good for the coach. There's a saying in um it's more around youth sport, because that there's a lot of, I mean, just there's a lot of dropout in youth sport, not necessarily for bad reasons, just because people, kids do sports and then, just sort of don't do them anymore. But don't be someone's last coach. I think it's a good
Ooh,
is a good saying, right? Like
yeah.
if you're the coach and then they're like, yeah, I'm done. Like I mean, it's happened to me. It's happened to me where people just sort of walk away, and it's, I mean, university is a bit of a like an end point sometimes for people, and that's it's a fair enough moment for people to say, okay, now I'm done. But yeah, like as with you, like I really hope to see that like when they're done university, that they can keep that going, and that it was running was a thing that was valuable enough to them that they want to keep it, in their life. um yeah, so back to the something you mentioned too about the strength training. So between the you know the school, let's call them school, I don't know, university, college age kids and adult rec, like for the Dawson kids and Concordia, it's a little bit easier maybe to just get them to the weight room, because there's a weight room and it's sort of an
Mhm.
organized, it's like you go to the Dawson weight room or go to the Concordia weight room. For the adult recreational runners, how do you sort of incorporate the strength training, motivate them? Because I think, as a very general rule, like obviously everybody's not the same, but if that's a thing that people who are running, as adults don't necessarily want to do, because they're like, well, I want to run. I don't want to go in the weight room
Mm.
with a bunch of jocks or whatever and stuff. I don't want to spend my time doing that. I want to spend my time running. But what are the, benefits of actually having them do it, and how do you kind of encourage them to do it?
I think um injury prevention is a pretty big one. And so kudos to anybody who can run and, push themselves, or like, take those steps to the next level with their running without coming up against some kind of injury. Um, Perhaps, yeah, if someone who fits in that category, kudos to you. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think injury prevention and knowing that being strong and durable is the key to keep being able to continue running, injury free, is a pretty big motivator in my mind as someone who's had various injuries along the way.
Yeah,
Um,
it's tough because you don't want to be like, well, injuries are inevitable, because obviously you're trying to, as a coach, structure training so that they don't happen. And
mm,
but it does, I mean, not for everybody, but there's always sort of something that can come up, because you do want to push the line a little bit, right, in order to sort of improve and make changes.
Yeah, our bodies are so quirky.
Mm.
Like my wife has been struggling a bit with some plantar fasciitis in the last like year or so, and she just happened to go and see a podiatrist this week, and I don't know that it was very useful, but one of the things that the podiatrist told her is that one of her legs is longer than the other, and so I get a phone call from a panicked wife being like, "Do you like? Will you? Did you know this? Did you know that one of my legs was longer than the other? And will you still love me?" And I was like, yeah, "That's a silly question."
I'm deformed. No, it's actually a very common thing, and it actually happened to my wife too. And the she had been to see a specialist, and they said, yeah, this, and she put in like just a Dr. Scholl's in one shoe, and she said
Mm,
it changed her life. Like she had back
mm.
pain went away. Like so, it's something that's very common and probably very treatable.
So I think in the scheme of um like body, our bodies are so quirky. We're built
Hmm.
in so many different ways. I think like it's not like I don't even know that an injury popping up is always a reflection of a poorly planned training program either.
Hmm.
There's so many things that can be factored in. Yeah, even just the ways that we sit for most of the day is like quite a lot to deal with when we try to get moving.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I think structurally, as soon as you're like the minute you're asking your body to do something out of the ordinary, and changing some kind of stimulus, it's very fathomable to discover the a weak link. And I think, I mean, I see that as part of the athletic journey is continuing to push our limits and try out new things and see, oh, okay, where is the next weakest link? And yeah, having a good physio to be able to go and see and to talk those through and look at what's going on structurally, biomechanically, and work on our weaknesses. It's all part of the journey, and like it's not necessarily always fun and glorious, but yeah, I don't know. And I think as part of this, I mean, I think we're very lucky to be in a position where we get to move our bodies. I definitely am very grateful for all the time that I do get to spend moving. And I think about the ways that that's equipping me for aging, and being an active older adult. And at some point, active becomes, being an older adult who's able to carry my groceries from the car inside is really cool. So yeah, sometimes I joke and sometimes I remind the student athletes who are 17 that maybe what we're actually training for is being mobile, capable, older adults who have good bone density,
Yeah.
um, and balance. Like those are two pretty cool things that I would like to have as a 78-year-old.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, let's not get carried away. Like you're not. I wouldn't categorize you as an older, aging person at all. But no. Point taken. And I've been thinking of that a lot. Recently, especially since my like accident, and I was basically like on the couch for 6 months.
Yeah.
Like how great it is to be able to run and move around, and that's really been my goal coming back. Is just like kind of I mean, I love to run, and so that will be my primary thing for sure as long as it's possible. But I also actually love to work out. I find lifting weights very satisfying and enjoyable, and I think that the it's very much just like a self-efficacy thing. Like I think when I mean the first time I lifted weights was probably in high school, and then again in university, but I wasn't really shown necessarily how to do it, and it was sort of like there were probably certain uh like assumptions on my part and maybe of the coaches at the time too, of like what it ought to be. But now kind of like knowing more about it, and like just like when I went to the gym and they had like this deadlift class, and I was like, oh, take this deadlift class and learn how to do a deadlift, and it was so great. And then I did another strength training certification in the US, where it's basically um, it's essentially the same content as the whatever the National Strength Training Institute one or whatever, but it was modified for NCAA coaches. So I'm actually like certified to be an NCAA team strength coach. Um, and but anyway, doing that, like, and learning kind of the power lifts, it was just like, oh yeah, like these are really cool things. And it's kind of fun too, because it's like different from running. So obviously, I love running. I get the joy I get out of running, but then like to go in the weight room, it's like something different, even though it's contributing to the same goal. I think that can be good too for people to kind of like, switch it up and do something different. And it's like learning a new skill. And so yeah, you might not be good at it at the start, but also like it's fun too to do a new thing, and like the gains are like, so much more when you start from zero. It's like, oh, I used to be able to do nothing and now I can do this, whatever move. It's like, I was coaching little kids playing hockey now, and it's just like, or just even my youngest son, like from October, he like couldn't stand up without me, and now like I swear to God, he's faster than me on skates already. Like he's a madman. So like it's cool to see like things where you can improve a lot. And I think sometimes runners who've been running for a while kind of forget this, because you're just like, yeah, it's running. I do running, and you hope for this big jump, but you're not really going to get a big jump in running once you've been running for a while, unless you are able to drastically change something. So the weight room can be, and actually the weight room could be a drastic type change that could actually allow you to make a big jump in running if it works out well. So um cool. Okay, so um we're not the Joe Rogan podcast. We're not here for like 3 hours. We want to give people like about kind of a 45-ish minute session. So pretty much done. Joe, thank you for coming and talking. I think that this is probably actually the most that you've spoken, kind of at length. Like when we're coaching together, you're very reserved and sort of, observing things. And I think it's really good. I'm really happy to have kind of gotten inside your mind a little bit more here, and learn some of the, the things, and benefit from the things you have in there. Is there anything else you want to add, share, talk about before we end this?
I mean, there's definitely a few things uh that I would have elaborated on along the way in this conversation. There's so many things to say. Yeah, and I mean, I have also grown and developed over the years that you and I have known each other. So that's definitely been a process too. I think I'm at my most reserved when I don't feel equipped or expert enough to be the person who is taking up a lot of space to say things. So yeah, it's been a real privilege to be coaching at Dawson, and yeah, even that opportunity, I remember you being very supportive in me putting my name in the hat at that point in time, and that's really been quite the launching pad for many new coaching things and growth and development. So
Sure, sure. And we didn't even get to talk about Thelma and your experience with Thelma. Uh,
yeah, like being involved with the Athletics Canada mentorship program has been really great in so many ways, in having a mentor allocated to me, and then having spent the weekend at the kickoff event with other mentor coaches, and also building a network of coaches, like having spent time at the RSEQ provincials for the Concordia team last weekend, getting to bump into other coaches, Marc-Andre at Sherbrooke, and catch up and have chat and play lots of fun shenanigans with other people around that context was pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so good for coaches to kind of talk to each other, because we can get very siloed. And I think, and just like from the athlete perspective, because if you're an athlete and you're listening, you're like, okay, like now they're just talking about coaches. But I think if you're an athlete, and your coach is the only coach that you have and is kind of the only one around, I mean, like, that's probably fine. It's pretty normal. But I think it's useful to, if that coach is talking about other coaches and brings in other people to do different things because they don't necessarily have that expertise, that's a really good sign. Because no one coach knows everything, and no one coach is the right coach for every athlete all the time. Like, sometimes things also they run their course, and an athlete coach working together, at a certain point, it's like, maybe it's better to go and work with someone else, or work with some other people to just sort of get a different perspective on things, because it can be hard for coaches to sort of get out of habits, or whatever, and things like that. And so, I don't know, I'm a big fan of just, like, I think that coaching teams also kind of help prevent that. Not that you trying to prevent people from, like, leaving the group, but just making sure that you can give to the athletes all that they need. Having a bunch of different voices will allow all the relationships to last, I think, longer, and be stronger. So anyway, that's my pitch for
It's hard
that.
to know everything as one person.
It is hard. It is hard.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks, Joe. Really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll see you around very soon.
Thanks, guys.